Ever since the iPad Pro 2020 was announced, I knew that I had to wait for the Magic Keyboard to ship so that I can fully review and understand what it's all about. Granted, I used to have the 2018 iPad Pro, and while I enjoyed it a ton, it just didn't work out for me and what I do for work. Now that we have the new hardware and a newer iPad OS, maybe this new setup can convince me to leave my MacBook Pro at home and take the setup with me on the go. So before we dive into the new hardware and software, I want to quickly thank our channel sponsor Dbrand for hooking us up with this black carbon fiber iPad Pro skin. If you're looking to change the look of your device, whether it's an iPad Pro, your iPhone, or your OnePlus device, Dbrand is the easiest way to do that. They offer a ton of different skin options and textures for a ton of different devices. If you want to learn more, go ahead and check out the first link below. Alright, so one of the major features added in iPadOS 13.4 is mice and trackpad support. Now this means any Bluetooth mouse or trackpad can be used to navigate throughout the entire OS, hence why there's now a trackpad on the new Magic Keyboard. Also, external keyboards now have full access to the OS, which means you can scroll through web pages using the arrow keys and you can set certain keyboard shortcuts throughout the OS. Now when it comes to this new $300 Magic Keyboard, here's the thing. I don't think it should cost $300. Yes, it's an amazing keyboard. Typing on it is a breeze. It's really sturdy. It doesn't feel like the iPad's gonna fall off at all. And no, it doesn't make the iPad super heavy despite the first wave of reviews saying it's really heavy. It's still a pretty portable setup, but there's still issues with this keyboard. One of which is not having keyboard shortcuts at all, like screen brightness, media controls, multitasking, keyboard backlight settings, and volume control. Lots of third-party keyboards have those shortcuts, so why doesn't this have that? Now, I think that should come standard in any keyboard in 2020. Another issue I have with this keyboard are the lack of viewing angles. It's still pretty limiting in my opinion. The iPad is floating, yes, that's super cool, but there's very little range that I can set the iPad to. I wish there's a way to have it fully go back or just tilt it a little bit more, but yeah, it's somewhat limiting, and also the fact that it doesn't have an escape key kind of bothers me a little bit. On the positive side though, I do love the trackpad. I think it's as good as the Magic Trackpad on the Mac. It's really clicky and you can click anywhere on the trackpad, which is really convenient. There's also a pass-through port on the keyboard so you can charge your iPad and have accessories connected to the actual device at the same time, so that's really nice to see. But yeah, I still don't think it's worth $300. I think a good starting price for this would be $200, but that's just me. Now the iPad Pro itself hasn't changed much since we last checked it out in 2018. The display is still bright, beautiful, and that ProMotion display is just so good to look at. I didn't opt in for the Apple Pencil this time just because I rarely used it, but doing everyday tasks like checking email, browsing the web, watching video, writing scripts works really well. The iPad Pro also now comes with the A12Z Bionic chip, which apparently is only 1% faster than the 2018 iPad Pro. But using creative apps like Lightroom or LumaFusion worked amazingly well too. The apps didn't stutter even if I was working on large photo files or 4K files, it didn't crash once. Now file management could be better, but then again this is iPadOS and not a Mac, so I can't really complain all that much on this department. Now this iPad Pro also gets a second camera, which is an ultra-wide camera and a LiDAR sensor. Now I'm not a huge iPad photographer, I guess it's nice to have that, but I personally don't ever use the cameras. Plus there's now a LiDAR sensor to help with AR functionality if you're into that sort of thing. But yeah, the overall experience felt really similar to the 2018 iPad Pro. Now when it comes to day-to-day and whether it could actually replace my MacBook Pro that I use for work, the answer is still no. Even with the newer OS improvements, Magic Keyboard, I was still struggling with multitasking, multi-window support, and file management. I really want to like this iPad Pro, and I think it can replace a full-fledged laptop for a lot of people. It's just not for me. But as someone who deals with a ton of video projects and assets, creating spreadsheets and documents and keeping track of our content calendar, it's still a hassle to use an iPad Pro for my job. Plus, with all of this money that I spent on this setup, I could have easily bought a brand new MacBook Air with the new keyboard and upgraded processor for about $50 to $100 more depending on the specs. Now that's a full-fledged laptop with Mac OS. It'll be able to handle most of the stuff that I do on a regular basis, but unfortunately the iPad Pro is not for me. Maybe if I'm a writer or strictly a photographer, I can see myself using the iPad Pro every single day, but after this video goes live, this will be going back to Apple. Trust me, I really want to like it, but it's just not for me.